Hi there, everyone. Welcome to another Coffee with Two Coaches. I am Michelle Teague from A Teague of Your Own, and with me is my good buddy, Betty. Hi there, Betty.
Hi, Michelle. Hey, I noticed we're wearing similar colors today.
We are.
I can't believe it. We didn't even check in. Just like minds think alike.
Exactly. Yes, brilliant minds think alike, and that's the reason why we have this pretty shade of pink on today.
Yep,
It must be a
right
pink
for
kind.
today.
Yes. Yes. Well, we're into September. One of the topics that we had sort of kind of talked about a little bit uh, over the past couple of months was we were focusing on emotional intelligence, and something that came up during those conversations was active listening.
Mhm.
And one of the concepts that you have actually done training on is active communication. And so we thought we would do a two-part, uh, you know, training here on active listening and active communication. And today we're going to focus on active listening in the workplace and how it makes for stronger leaders there in the workplace. And as a result of that, you have a stronger organization and a stronger team.
And
Uh,
that's a little different
yeah.
from when you go to a course and you learn about active listening from a personal standpoint and how you work with your coworkers. I mean, this is a broader perspective that also brings in what your role is and how you can become a more effective active listener in your organization, on your team, with your peers and with your manager and so forth. So,
Yep. So if you want effective communication, because that's going to be the bedrock for every relationship, and it doesn't matter if it's a workplace relationship or a personal relationship, like you were saying, if you want that, you're going to have to focus on active listening. If you've ever experienced a crisis at work, and you may have felt a grand misunderstanding caused the crisis itself. It could have been avoided by better communication. Unfortunately, uh, bad communication happens. And when you have a busy setting, when you need to focus more and listen more as opposed to being real scattered. So we're going to talk a little bit about the importance of active listening in the workplace and how it can contribute to people's management and leadership skills. Many people want to know, what exactly is active listening? Active listening is a communication technique that's used to encourage understanding and comprehension. When engaged in active listening, the listener actually strives to hear and understand the message that the speaker is trying to communicate. They're not thinking of what they're going to say next. They're not thinking of how they're going to respond. They're actually trying to communicate with the person by listening to the message. This involves paying close attention to the words spoken, as well as the tone, the body language, and the overall context of the conversation. Active listening is a lot of work. It often involves providing feedback to the speaker to ensure that the message is being properly received. And by practicing active listening, both parties can ensure effective communication and avoid misunderstandings.
that's true. I mean, th- and we're going to talk more about that as we go on
Mhm.
because I think that's the biggest issue. I don't know about you, that you see in the workplace, no matter if it's in the private sector or in government and in nonprofit. And most of the time, money is wasted because people make mistakes because they're not listening to each other. So, and really, active listening has a very big component, as you said before, of emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is new. I mean, it was found and researched in the 1990s. Books were written on it, but I think it became more of a training in the workshop in organizations. So, emotional intelligence has been described as the ability to be aware of and understand your emotions. and the emotions of others. And remember, we went through empathy last week, and empathy has a component where emotional intelligence can really help empathy because you're observing other people's emotions and trying and identifying them. So understanding other state of emotion is at the core of EI, as we said, but active listening too. And while emotional intelligence is often thought of to be like IQ, it's not. EI is not IQ. It is a characteristic of you, but it's something that you can learn and it's something that you can improve. IQ is what you have and what you're born with. You really can't make it higher than you have it. So why is active listening important? Well, we started talking about that. Lack of communication in the workplace can cause operational hiccups and maybe even some dangerous accidents. And at worst case, it can become a crisis where unions have to be brought in and people are laid off and so forth. More importantly, employees may complain if they don't feel their needs are being met. And maybe if there was better communication, they could communicate more succinctly what they're feeling and also what they need, and then listen to what the managers, or what they call management, expects from them with regards to performance and doing their jobs. I mean, in some cases, it actually leads to litigation, which is expensive, and it also can be take away from the time the business is business. So you want to make sure people feel heard and that they feel like they're accepted, and then they'll be more cooperative. So this is both tangible and intangible benefits for leaders, but it also has the same for people who work in the workplace. Now, good leaders not to overlook the importance of listening skills. So that's why we're really honing in on active listening. James Hume, author and professor of language and leadership at the University of Southern Colorado, describes the art of communication as the language of leadership, which is true. We've talked about in the past that leaders really, the biggest thing are building interpersonal communication skills. And active listening is one of the core facets of effective communication, and it's an important skill that all leaders have to go through multiple courses for.
Oh,
To
yeah.
be better, to be really competent.
And you and I have worked with several leaders at multiple levels within organizations. And one of the key trainings that both of us have done is on communication skills. And it's something that some leaders are lacking. Uh,
That's true.
and so when it comes to active listening, that's a part of those communication skills. And there are actual techniques that people can use for active listening. People intuitively know if they're being listened to. We all know when somebody's paying attention to what we're saying. You may have experienced walking into an office to speak with somebody only to find they won't even look up from the document that they are reading or typing as you're speaking with them. That type of behavior can make people feel as if they're being dismissed. What the body language tells you is that you aren't important enough for me to stop what I'm doing and listen to what you have to say. Active listening is the antithesis of this type of dismissive behavior. While it comes instinctively to some people, others may struggle with it. So let's walk through some of the core practices of active listening. And the first is to actually pay attention. To understand what someone is saying, it's important to hear their words and pay attention to their message. That requires that the listener actually pay attention to the words, to the tone of the voice, to the body language, and to all the other cues that are being given by the speaker. By doing this, the listener can actually gain a better understanding of the speaker's meaning and what their message is. And that's what you're really trying to get to.
And one of the things that you see when you come in, like you were talking about, to somebody's office, they're actually, and maybe you're actually talking to them on the phone or through Zoom, they're multitasking. So all of their attention is not on you, and really the communication that you are conversation that you're going to use to communicate what your needs are or why the purpose you're there. And so while you may take pride in your ability to multitask, I mean, that's become doing more with less. That became a really big and really a big skill.
Mhm.
But doing other things while an employee is trying to explain something important to you might not be the best way to really uh, gain attention, really be able to build some sort of relationship, may help them understand something that they have misunderstood. So it can make them feel like they're getting in your way, and which can then reluctant to approach you in the future. Excuse me. Sorry, sorry, fell over that. Um, so sit down with them and give them your undivided attention. Pay attention.
Yeah.
If it's not a good time, then ask them to come back. I know when I was training managers, I would tell them to ask the person they're going to talk to, is this a good time for me to come in and have this conversation? We scheduled it at this time, but if something's come up, let's reschedule it. But we need to talk today. And then you want to face the speaker. So don't like be sideways or something like that. If you're at your desk, turn your chair and where the person who came in, your manager is sitting. People often tend to put in proportionate amounts on words while dismissing body language. And body language is really important. So that's why you need to really face them. They really, if you read their body language as well as listen to them, then you don't misunderstand what they're saying because one reinforces the other. So that's why facing the person and listening to them speak is essential for making them feel heard and for you to be able to answer and feel heard.
And not just that, but the body language usually, you will key into the body language more than you'll pay attention to the words, because
Yes.
the body language is what they're actually feeling and trying to express.
I mean, I've heard people say when they're negotiating a deal, it's not the words, but it's how the person's sitting
Mhm.
and facial gestures and what their body's doing, what their hands are doing, and so forth, that really is telling you where they're really, what position and role and what they're feeling at the time. And so if they're showing you something about they're not listening, it may show up in the way their body is like turned away from you or looking down or so forth. So
Exactly, exactly. The fourth technique for all this is to make regular eye contact. Part of being an active listener is making eye contact with the speaker, because this creates a connection between the two people and shows that the listener is actually interested in this conversation. Eye contact also helps to cue the listener as to when it's their turn to speak. When you maintain eye contact with the person you're talking with, you are sending a signal that you are listening attentively and you're taking in what they are saying, which is the whole purpose of listening, is to take in that information. However, it's also important to break eye contact from time to time, as constant, unbroken eye contact can make some people feel very uncomfortable because they feel like you're just staring at them and you're not paying attention, you're just staring there. So you do need to make sure that you break that eye contact every once in a while. Also, you don't want to interrupt the speaker. When someone comes to you with an issue, when they have a challenge, when they're not quite sure what to do, it's important that you let them fully explain before you jump in there and start interceding. It's easy to think you can predict what's going to be said next, but that doesn't always mean that you're going to be right. Sometimes they will just go off in a different direction, and then you're stuck sitting there saying, wait, hold on a second, what happened here? That's why you need to pay attention and not jump in. Aside from being basic conversational etiquette, it'll make the people that you're working with, it'll make your team members feel that they are understood and valued when you just stay quiet and listen. Listen till the end to ensure that you grasp everything that they're saying and that you fully understand the message that they have.
And I think another way to make sure you don't interrupt is not to be thinking what's the next thing you're going to say. And if they're going off on a tangent, a good thing is to say, John, I hear what you're saying, but I don't believe that's part of this conversation. But if you want to talk about it, I'm going to write down that we want to talk about it. And if we have time, I'll be glad to talk about it if and learn more what you want. If not, we'll make another appointment so that when you have time and I have time so that we can really flesh this out. So you don't just sort of go, hey, John, come back on topic. You've interrupted yourself, type of
Yes.
thing. And this doesn't work. And the other thing with that is have a receptive attitude.
Yeah.
I mean, don't come in and think this is a drudge. I
Mm.
have to do this because I'm a manager. Because if you come in that way, well, then it's going to feel like a negative environment, and you're putting off negative vibes to this person, and then they become defensive and so forth. So you really need to figure out why it's important to them, how are they feeling about this, the emotions, and how would I feel if I were them, putting yourself in their shoes, because that will allow you to use body language and say, yeah, John, I understand. And here's what I'm hearing you say. Let's talk about it a little more. So uh, summarizing their points is also important. I hear managers have the conversation and then they say, oh, fine, good talk. Well, okay, now what? What am I supposed to do? And what are you supposed to do? And did you even understand what I said? So coaches use this a lot. They use summarization because they need to show their clients that they heard what they said and then rephrase it so that the client can agree, and then they can determine what the next action is. And managers are the same way. So summarizing what was said. So if I understand you correctly, this is what you said, and this is what you're asking about. Or as I understand it,
Mhm.
you need this from me, and I need this and I want to share that I also need this from you. Always give them the opportunity to affirm and say, yes, this is what I said. And if it's not that, then you say, well, okay, I heard you, but could you please tell me again what
Mhm.
it is you want, what's bothering you, why it's bothering you, and give them a little bit of a framework for them to be able to uh, clarify what they said. And then you re-summarize it.
Exactly. And that way, like you said, you can always ask the clarifying questions just to make sure that you're on the right path with them. And you're showing them how much you have paid attention to them and how much you've invested in this
Yes.
conversation.
Right.
Last but not least, you need to offer feedback. Usually, when someone comes to you with an issue or with a challenge, they want your thoughts on this, or they're looking for solutions. So after you have summarized the conversation and like you said, offered your understanding of what was said. This is where you can now offer your own thoughts on the topic, and you can offer your solutions to what the challenge might be. So that's the whole process there of active listening. Uh, Lots of things to do, and it just makes sense. I mean, literally, it makes sense from paying attention to following along and staying quiet, not interrupting, and making sure you summarize and offering feedback. It makes sense to do all this.
That's, yep.
Yeah. So
And it makes you a
how
stronger leader.
it
You know,
does. So how does this make you a stronger leader? But because practicing active listening is a crucial skill for managers and leaders at every level. And this is something that they need to have in their toolkits. So, Betty, what are some of the ways that it will benefit leaders and also end up benefiting the team and the organization as a whole?
and one of the things that leaders really are required to do, and they are met their performance is measured by this, which is workplace productivity. And
Mhm.
so communication is part of improving productivity. So when the employee communicates effectively using all the things that we talked about, they're better able to work together with the leader, the manager, the executive, and they're able to achieve common goals. Good communication promotes clear and concise information exchange. I mean, I know there's some things where I go, what did they say? And so, and you try and you ask them not to use, big jargon and a lot of data, depending on what it is. If it's scientific, then you and the manager understand the data. But you want to help prevent errors and misunderstandings. And furthermore, effective communication skills help employees build strong work relationships with their employers. So good professional relationships are essential for fostering a collaborative work environment. Therefore, you don't have any crises. You don't have any in a more technical area, manufacturing area. You don't have any maybe almost fatal accidents and so forth. Now, another thing that goes along with this is employee trust.
Mhm.
So when the employees know they can come to you and that they are being heard and that you are receptive and sensitive to their issues, they feel confident that you'll be able to clue in on everything that's happening in your organization and therefore have their best interests at heart. And when it comes to running an organization, that's important.
Yeah, it is. And something else that pops up, and this is one of the areas that I have helped a lot of organizations focus on over the years, is conflict resolution.
Mm,
So some of what you were talking about before when it comes to improved productivity, one of the reasons why productivity goes down is because there's conflict there in the workplace. So if organizational conflict is going on, it arises because of a lot of different reasons, and most of the time it's because of miscommunication. It can be disagreements over tasks. There can be issues with different personalities. You can have conflicts that happen on a daily basis between a couple of coworkers. If it's left unresolved, those conflicts can quickly escalate, and that will lead to a hostile work environment. And that's when the productivity starts to go down because people don't want to be there and people don't want to work with one another. One of the ways to prevent that is by practicing active listening. When you practice active listening, it can help resolve conflicts before they become too heated. By actively listening with the person who is speaking, you show them the respect that they are wanting for their particular opinion. And you also show that you're willing to work together to find a solution. In addition, by truly listening to what is being said, you may be able to find a compromise between both of these people who are having this conflict. So it comes in
Now,
very handy.
there's also another thing that isn't mentioned in here. Maybe it's a deeper concept, but assumptions.
Mm, mhm.
People make assumptions about other people. They may have different beliefs, and therefore they don't know or understand the beliefs of the other person. They make you know roundabout thoughts
Mhm.
and ideas about what the person is all about, and typically it's wrong.
Yeah.
So communication is really part of the ability to be able to put a, put down the assumptions and find out what's really happening, find out what the facts are, so that then you can respond in such a way and be able to solve a problem if it's there.
Yeah. And speaking of solving problems, one of the other benefits of this is effective problem solving. Because when you fully understand a problem, because you've listened about this problem, you can come up with some of the best solutions for that problem. So active listening helps with coming up with effective solutions that will directly target the problem, and it'll help minimize any possible damage. So that's another reason why you would want to use active listening. What else can this help with, Betty?
Well, self-improvement. I
Yeah.
mean, we're all need to be under, try to be fine honing our skills. And
Yeah.
the communication is one of the key skills that covers a lot of things. And so, it's considered the many benefits that can come from being a skilled active listener is big in your personal and your professional life.
Mhm.
It's easy to see how they can be an empowering skill to cultivate and keep from, you said, well, I've been through a communication course and, I know what's going on. But when I coach people, they can communicate. They're very good at telling them what to do, and they
Mhm.
think that's communication. Sometimes they ask them a question, an open-ended question, and they think that's communication, but it's not necessarily total communication, and it's not active listening because sometimes you ask the open-ended question, but you are not listening to the answer. So self-improvement will help you become a stronger in that skill. And the skill is active listening and more effective communication.
Excellent.
Active listening in the workplace is key. Good communication is essential for, hey, your workplace, your organization to function better, more effectively, and in some cases in the private sector, make money and not lose
Yeah.
it. One of the key elements, again, we've said is of communication is active listening. And so again, it involves to pay attention what others are saying and to understand the perspective. I think one of the other things that's not discussed is observation, is
Mm.
observing the other person. We talked about body language, but
Yeah.
sometimes you as a manager can be observing two other people talking or listening to them. And then you need to step in maybe or figure out how you need to communicate with each of them because maybe they're misunderstanding things and you want to help them clarify them so that a conflict doesn't happen. So, it's essentially important in problem solving and allows organizations to gather information from all its stakeholders,
Yeah.
its clients, and really its employees and the team leaders so that they can effectively um, avoid potential problems.
Yeah.
So without listening, it'd be very difficult for organizations to resolve conflicts.
Yeah.
And recently a number of companies had uh, bargaining meetings, union labor, and certain things came out that one party wasn't happy with. And so they had to have mediation come in and help them actually be able to discuss what each side wanted and measure what is practical and really what that party actually needed over a long period of time that they hadn't had, which is time off, higher pay, so
Mhm.
forth. But the leaders would have to explain how it would impact the business, which would mean lesser, maybe might mean less hours for people. So you could lose, even though you, sorry about that. You could lose even though you gained. Michelle, go ahead.
So we've been talking about active listening, and how we can use it in the workplace to make ourselves stronger
Excuse me.
leaders, stronger managers, uh, because effective communication is the bedrock. Like we said, it's the bedrock of every relationship, whether it's personal or there in the workplace. And active listening feeds into having those effective communication skills. So this is the end of part one, where we've talked about active listening. What we're going to talk about next time is active communication. And when we talk about active communication, we'll give you a little bit better idea of what we're talking about, what that is. But this is something that Betty has done a lot of in the past when she's done coaching and training. And so I'm really looking forward to part two. So we will see you at our next one. Take care, everybody. See you later.
Thank you. I'm sorry about my dogs. My husband probably just came in the door and they're having a good time barking at him to show that they're happy that he's home.
Yes,
So
they are.
thank you. I'm looking forward to part two next
Yeah,
time. Thanks, Michelle.
sure.